Hey guys, guess what? In this episode, I'm going to be doing a ranking of the top Hurricane players that were drafted. Welcome back. A rankings video. It's been a while since the last rankings video. I think the last rankings type of video we did, or I did, was probably 2 years ago when both Sam and I, the former co host, did a rankings of our all-time favorite Hurricane players. So th- I've always loved ranking videos. I've watched plenty of NHL ranking videos on YouTube, and I thought this would be fun because this is going to be a fun episode. And also another thing too, with this being a rankings video, this is not gospel. If you have a completely different list than mine, go right ahead, please. I think it is wonderful to have different opinions. So, how I am going to do this is I'm getting to my rankings real quick here. Is that there are a few things that I have considered. So, again, I am ranking the top Hurricane players that we have drafted, and a few things that I have considered. Oh, also, first things first, I have a great partnership with SeatGeek. You get $20 off of your first purchase if you use promo code Caniac Reports, all one word. Great deal on a local venue that uses SeatGeek. And also another thing too, we will not have an episode on September 1st, which is Labor Day. Funny enough, it's also my birthday too. So no episode on September the 1st. So, a few things I considered. Sorry, I had to do that stuff first. Is the round they were drafted and the expectations that came with it. And what I mean by that, if you're drafted in, let's say, the fourth round and you're becoming one of the best players, then that helps your ranking compared to, let's say, a first round player that we drafted that barely made it to the NHL on our team. So that's one thing I have considered. If you're drafted in the fourth round, I'm going to consider you a fourth round type of player. The other thing is there's a huge impact. I would say this is probably one of the biggest ones. If you won the Stanley Cup with the Hurricanes, and as you guys will see in my list, if you win a Stanley Cup and if you were impactful, obviously, then I consider you very, very highly. The next thing too is production during the regular season. So, so let's say there's a player that produced very, very well during the regular season and won the Stanley Cup. He's probably going to be higher than a person who was on the team 2016 that won the Stanley Cup. So that again, that's just how I'm factoring these things in. And the next thing that I considered is the amount of seasons they have had with the Hurricanes. Most of these players that I have ranked played several seasons with the Hurricanes. So that's a huge factor as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get to it. I do have a couple of honorable mentions. One is Warren Fogle, who we drafted, I believe, in the fourth round. And I am going to check on that real quick here. My bad. Sorry. Third round in the 2014 draft. And he played pretty good with us. I would remark that he had impactful playoffs with us, especially in that playoff series against Washington. If you guys remember watching that series back in 2018, so he's an honorable mention, and he has played quite a few seasons with us. So again, factoring that in as well. The other honorable mention is Elias Lindholm, who we drafted fifth overall in the 2013 draft, so the draft right before Warren Fogle was drafted. And Lindholm, I mean, he to me he was a player that I thought was a little bit rushed by the Hurricanes. But if you look at his stats, I mean, he played quite a few seasons with us. He mainly got around high 30s, low 40s in point production, but he played like 4 seasons with us. And listen, I've actually liked the player when he was with the Hurricanes. I hated that we traded him, but I can tell that was more of a, even though I thought we got good players back in the Calgary trade that gave us Dougie Hamilton and Michael Furland, I thought that was more of a culture type of trade to shake things up. So Elias Lindholm, I think he was a pretty decent forward for us. Never really got to that full potential like he probably did in Boston and Calgary, but he is an honorable mention. So I tried to limit. I really did try to limit to the top 10, but with the amount of players that we drafted that are actually have actually made an impact in some way, I had to go to 12. So 12 to number 1, and I'm starting at 12 first. I'm going to end at number 1 with this episode. But number 12 is Jeff Skinner. He was drafted 7th overall in the 2010 draft. And to me, he was one of the bright spots back in the dark ages. He was a player that, I mean, you can tell he enjoyed being out on the ice. He was happy every time he scored a goal. And I've always thought he was the last pure sniper type of player that we kind of had. But Jeff Skinner, I mean, I thought he was a great player. Was he one dimensional? Yes, there were definitely a lot of times where he missed his defensive assignment. But you look at this team back in the dark ages, like he was actually a pretty decent player on a very crappy team. The next player, he was also a bright spot in the dark ages, the 37th overall back in 2010 draft. So 2010 draft was actually pretty good for us. But I call him the Queso Man. That's my nickname for him, Justin Falk. The reason why I call him the Queso Man is because if you didn't if you did not watch the Hurricanes during the Dark Ages, you wouldn't get this. But if you did, you probably know, because if Justin Falk scored a power play goal, you would receive free queso at Moe's. And considering I actually do really like Moe's, Justin Falk really isn't. Whenever his name comes up in my brain, it's back to memory lane. He was a very good offensive defenseman, and he played several seasons with us. He was actually still with us when we finally made it back in the playoffs. Were there times where he wasn't good defensively? Absolutely. But again, during those dark ages when you had mainly third, fourth liners on this team, Falk and Skinner were kind of the bright spots because they were actually decent players. So to me, number 10 that I have put, we drafted him 97th overall back in the 2000 draft. So this is going way back. But he did win a Stanley Cup with us, and I do think he had somewhat of an impact. And that is Nicholas Wallin. And I think Wallin played very, very good. He is mainly known as that defensive defenseman type of role, but I thought he played very, very good. He played several seasons throughout his career with the Hurricanes, and I mean the point production wasn't there, and that to me kind of limited him to be like, I can't rank him above number 10 with the players that I have. But Wallin, definitely a great, great Hurricane. So number 9, I have, he was selected second overall in the 2018 draft, is Andrei Svechnikov. And as this is coming out, you guys have heard my thoughts. I did a whole episode on him with Fetch, so I'm just going to make it brief here. But Svechnikov, I mean, do I think he's a top 6 forward? Absolutely. But there's more to give with him. There is definitely more, and I thought we saw that in this past playoffs of how good he can be. If he can translate that to what he did in the playoffs with his goal scoring ability, to next season and he can be like a third 30, 35 goal scorer, then I'll take it. He just can't get 15 to 20. He is so much better than that. Like his shot is lethal and it's dangerous. So, I mean, if you look at again, you look at his seasons, he's mainly gotten from 37 points to around 50, around 40, 50 points. He had one, I believe, there was one season with Fetch where it was one of his best. Again, I already talked about that in a previous episode, but I could not rank him higher than ninth because there's just a lot more to give with Svechnikov. The next player that I have is Martin Necas, drafted 12th overall in the 2017 draft. And I think it took him probably about a year until I noticed that this player was probably going to be a stud because lots of scouts had him being a player that is a player who is one of the best in terms of his skating ability. And we saw that. Like Natchez, I'm telling you, his skating ability is amazing. And I would argue his point production, and in fact, I think it is true. You look at his point production, it is better than Svechnikov's. Now, he has his own demons, of course, like turning the puck over. If you remember, there were a couple seasons where he was turning the puck over to death. And I was like, dude, control the puck. Like, I can't remember the exact phrase, but I had a friend tell me, like, if his brain could think as fast as his skates, then there wouldn't be a problem with his stick handling ability. But he kept turning the puck over. And but at the same time, there were certain seasons where he led this team in points just because how electrifying he is. If you guys remember with Natchez, like he made some unreal, amazing goals. I mean, you can tell his go-to goal was that wraparound goal where he'll just come in through the neutral zone all on his own into the offensive zone and just score by wrapping around the goal. And it was just like, oh my gosh. We saw that, I believe, in the playoff series against Nashville. We saw that in the game at Columbus, I remember. So, Martin Necas, I think out of all the players on this list, if I had to rank them in terms of natural skill, he definitely would be in the top three because he is that good. It's just his mind cannot connect to his hands when it comes to the stick handling ability. So, and that was the biggest, I would say probably the biggest thing why I have ranked him number 8. And to me, this is when things I thought got really, really hard. To me, number 7, I have a player that we drafted during the COVID years of 2020, 13th overall. He has proven to be one of the top players in that draft. In fact, if you look at one of his or his whole draft class, look at just the point production so far. He has surpassed the number 1 overall player drafted that year in Alexis Lafreniere, and he is third overall in terms of points. He's right behind Tim Stutzel and Lucas Raymond. But I'm telling you, Seth Jarvis, boy, is he good. And I think out of all the players on this current team, he's probably the player closest to that natural goal scorer, that natural finisher that we kind of need. But he is so smart with the puck. He's an excellent skater. Again, when it came to the 7th position and up, that's when to me it got really, really hard. I could rank him higher than the players I had in the top 6 just because of the amount of seasons he had, and there was a bit of a down year in his sophomore year. I mean, we know as the sophomore slump, obviously, but Seth Jarvis to me, he's definitely number 7. So we have the top 6 left, 1 through 6. Okay, so number 6 I have is a player drafted in, I believe it was the 4th round. It could be the 4th round. No, I think it was the 3rd round. in Brett Pesce. This was back in 2013, the same draft as Lindholm, but drafted in the third round. Brett Pesce was by us. My gosh, has he made a huge difference? Like, he was considered a core piece on this team. And the thing is, what's really frustrating to me, and I'm sure to you Canes fans as well, is that obviously when we had to let him go because of the cap, and New Jersey signs him to a good contract. So good on Brett Pesce for getting a contract like that. The only thing with Pesce, even though he was a core piece for so many years on this team, the only thing that was kind of drawing him back a little bit was his injuries, especially with his shoulder. But regardless, Brett Pesce, one of the best defensive defensemen, I think, in the NHL. And I think he even showed that. If you guys remember the playoff series we had in the first round against New Jersey, I thought he was the best player for New Jersey by far. Now, I know Jack Hughes was hurt, and some Devils fans, if you're listening to this, you're thinking, well, it's because Jack Hughes is hurt. If he wasn't, he would be the best player. Maybe, but reality is Jack Hughes did not play in that series. He was still hurt, so I can only observe the players that are actually on the ice. And Brett Pesce was on the ice for New Jersey, and there were a couple of great defensive plays that he made against us. And it just shows, even with the injury history that he's had, he can still be a legitimate threat to the opposition in terms of stopping offense. So Brett Pesce, I list him at number 6, and the biggest part was where he was drafted, third round, and he was considered a core piece several years after. Brett Pesce, I do miss you, man. I really, really do. So I have you at number 6. To me, number 5, again, probably one of the best players I had. Remember, a couple years ago, I had my all-time favorite Hurricane players. He was, I believe, number 1, but he was drafted 120th overall pick in the 4th round in the 2012 draft. When you're drafted in the 4th round, the likelihood of you making the NHL is almost 0 to none. But Jacob Slavin, my gosh, that was a diamond in the rust right there. Jacob Slavin drafted in the 4th round, and look at the impact that he has had. Like the Four Nations thing that he had this past season proved, I think, to everyone that I think he is the best defensive defenseman. Well, I think you could argue Brett Pesce is one of the best. I think the difference between Slavin and Pesce is that you can argue Slavin's the actual best defensive defenseman in the NHL. Brett Pesce, I can't argue that. Do I think he's one of the best? Yes, but I'm not saying he's on the same level as Jacob Slavin. Slavin is on a level of his own. He was playing so well on that pair back in Four Nations with, I believe, Brock Faber. And my gosh, he has been the core, the foundation on this blue line for, I believe, let's see, he's 31. So for 10 years now with the Hurricanes, he's definitely going to retire as a Hurricane. We know that because of the contract he was given. I do think he took a hometown discount in order to stay with this team at a reasonable price. I think it was like 6.4 something million dollars for the next 8 years. Man, that is a freaking steal for the Hurricanes. And I'm happy that he was able to take a hometown discount just because he knows he wants this team to win a Stanley Cup. And I'm going to be shocked. I really am. And Slavin, not a lot of players wear that number 74 number. So I hope by the time he retires as a Hurricane, and I hope he retires as a Hurricane, or else I'm going to be sadly disappointed. But if he does, his number, I believe, needs to be retired in the rafters because of how important he has been to this team. Now, he hasn't won a Stanley Cup yet, but regardless, Slavin, I would say, out of all these players, has been the biggest steal in draft history for the Hurricanes. That's why I have ranked him at number 5. He just hasn't won a Stanley Cup yet. I hope he does. I really, really do. Number 4, I have going back to the 1998 draft, 71st overall pick, which is Eric Cole. And Eric Cole, several seasons with the Hurricanes, so that helps. His point production was pretty good. He mainly got around 50, 60 points with us. There were a couple seasons where he wasn't. That was toward later end of his career. But Eric Cole, he's a Hurricane by blood type of player. And there was one time where I spoke to Eric Cole, actually, and I just told him to just thank you for the impact that you've had on this organization. And he has. He had a big impact. And another reason why he's at number 4 on this list, I thought he was a huge reason of winning the Stanley Cup for the Hurricanes. Because I remember, I think it was in that season, yeah, Eric Cole got hurt, but he was able to come back. Actually, I don't think he was. I'm just now thinking. I don't think he. I don't think he played a lot of games in the playoffs, so that probably a little bit hurt him. But regardless, played many seasons with the Hurricanes. He got really, really good points with us. I hate. Yeah, he didn't play for us in the playoffs. I don't know why I thought about that, but no, he didn't. Because that was part of the reason why we got 2 veterans and Doug Waite and the other veteran, which my mind is blanking on. But Eric Cole, great player, one of the best. I think he's probably the best power forward type of player that we've had. And to me, that's why he is number 4. So the top 3 players now. I could, to me, when I constructed my rankings here, as I am looking at my rankings, I was like, nobody's going to beat this top 3. I thought the top 3 was actually pretty easy, to be honest. But to be number 3, who is still on this team, drafted in the second round, 35th overall pick in the 2015 draft, Sebastian Aho. And boy, again, I don't think it's as big of a steal as probably the Jacob Slavin pick, but that's a very good pick because while Aho, I might not label him as a star type of player, I think he is a top of the lineup type of player. Like Aho, he listen, there are some criticisms of Aho, and I mean I get it. He did have a down season offensive wise this past year, but regardless, Aho is a huge part of this team and has been a huge part of this team ever since his rookie season. And I mean, this team, because I know there's lots of criticisms, but if he wasn't, if he's not on this team, I just don't know the Hurricanes. Hurricanes probably make the playoffs, but I think they probably barely make it in just because of the impact Aho plays. And I want to see more angry Aho. I really, really do. But Aho, man, he's kind of, I would say, argue the current face of the Hurricanes. Whenever anybody, I would say, talks about the Hurricanes, they bring up Sebastian Aho. And I think he is a very good two-way center for the Hurricanes. Again, his point production and the fact that he was kind of a steal to me kind of puts him at number 3. He has not won a Stanley Cup yet, obviously, but to me, number 1, number 2, that was to me that's the highest Aho can go. I'm sorry, because number 2, I have drafted 25th overall in the first round in the 2002 draft. I have is a goalie in Cam Ward. And Cam Ward, he is still an icon. I consider probably him and Eric Stahl as probably the 2 icons for the Hurricanes in terms of just the Hurricanes itself and the history of the Hurricanes. Cam Ward, he was the reason why I would say they won the Stanley Cup because he made such remarkable saves. He came out of nowhere. He was a rookie goalie. No one expected him to be good. So that's a huge part of why he's number two. And the fact that he won a Stanley Cup, like, my gosh. Now, was he a good goalie compared to like the likes of Patrick Raw, Martin Brodeur? No, he wasn't. He got around probably the years after he won the Stanley Cup. His stats weren't the best. They weren't terrible, but at the same time, especially as it got into the dark ages, I would argue Cam Ward didn't really have a good team in front of him. So Cam Ward, to me, you're number two, man. You're the reason why they won the Stanley Cup. In fact, you're probably a steal at number 25, considering all that you have done for this team. And I'm telling you, when they had Cam Ward's retirement game, I'll admit I teared up because Cam Ward is one of my favorite Hurricane players of all time. He really is. Just love Cam Ward. And to me, number one, the guy who was drafted second overall in the 2003 draft. He, I mean, with Eric Stahl, I mean, obviously he's number one. He was a huge part of why they won the cup. I would say it was more Cam Ward than Eric Stahl, but with Eric Stahl, he definitely had a huge impact of them winning the Stanley Cup back in 2006. Now, he also got the captaincy. Apparently, there was some controversy in that, and he also played into the Dark Ages too, with the likes of Falk and Skinner, who are 11th and 12th in my rankings. But with Eric Stahl, he's still, to me, he is the only player in this Hurricanes history that is considered a star player. I will die on that hill because Eric Stahl was an electrifying player. Now, I did had some criticism. I will admit, I had some criticisms of Eric Stahl toward the probably the last part of his career with us, like the last one or two seasons. But that was just me being frustrated with the whole team because of just how long this playoff drought was going. But eventually, after that whole dark ages, Hurricanes now are on what, a 7 year playoff streak. Insane. Really, really insane. It's night and day. But Eric Stahl, he is, I would say, probably also not one of, not the only star on her in the Hurricanes history book, but I think he's probably one of the beloved Hurricanes player in Hurricanes history. And the fact that we drafted him, he's homegrown talent. He's number one. He really is. Nobody has gotten to the point production he had in that year when he won the cup. He got like over 100 points that season. Can you tell me I don't, even though we've been to the playoffs 7 straight seasons, no player on our current team has gotten even near that point production that Eric Stahl had. So, Eric Stahl, you get number one, buddy. And yeah, that is my rankings video of the top Hurricane players that were drafted. So I hope you enjoy it. I really did. This was meant to be a fun type of episode in a month where it's considered dead in terms of hockey news and all that type of stuff. So I really, really did. And I will see you guys for the next episode.